Welcome to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, holistic nutrition coach and speaker. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I am so honored and excited to introduce you to today's guest. Gabrielle is here with us. Welcome, Gabrielle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. This has been, I feel like, in the back of my mind, percolating for a while to bring you on the show to really pull out the power of your story here. And I think this conversation we're about to have is going to really hit home for a lot of people. And I'm just so grateful that you're willing to come in and share. I know that it takes a level of, just kind of jumping in the deep end, bearing your soul with topics like this. And I really, really appreciate you being willing to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. And it's been a beautiful moment of reflection for me being able to share my story years later and feel like I'm on a whole nother journey.
Yes, you are. And it's so beautiful to witness. Gabrielle and I actually met each other. Has it been 2 years now? It's been 2 years ago.
Yeah,
We've
just
done
over.
somatic embodiment training together. I know I've talked a lot about that here on the podcast where I've done my breathwork training and my somatic training. Gabrielle and I went through that together, and just incredible to be a part of each other's growth journeys and witness the transformations, the ups, the downs, all the stuff in the middle. And what a wild ride we're on, right? Life is incredible. So I would love to start off with a little bit more of like your story, and especially in this realm of obviously the conversation we're having today about antidepressants, microdosing, mental health, all the things. What is your journey into that? When did you start taking antidepressants and why? And, what has that sort of journey been like at the beginning for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it all started as a teenager. I was about 17, I think, when I started my medication. And before that, I was definitely dealing with a lot of anxiety for the first time. It was definitely a new experience for me while I was, sitting in class and all of a sudden these waves of uncomfortability coming on and recognizing like, oh, I can't be here. I can't sit in class. I got to leave. That was quite overwhelming and I didn't quite understand it. And I definitely moved towards uh, doing yoga, exploring meditation, and some other tools there. But it was something that was definitely still very much online for me. So, with that being said, a year later, it kind of fluctuated between falling into anxiety and depression. So, getting these, like weeks on end where I was just feeling very lethargic. I was crying all the time. It was really, really difficult for me to get out of bed. My energy was extremely low and I was just confused. I didn't really know necessarily what it was about all the time. I recognize at that time, reflecting back, I was moving through a lot under the surface and was in an environment where there was a lot of grief and loss around me. And through that, reflecting back, knowing now that I'm a very empathetic person that was really absorbing a lot of energy without knowing how to protect myself in that. I took a lot of things on. So that resulted in, a couple years of just really having to feel and be in the aftermath of that. So my journey was, visiting doctors and doing a bit of research. And I was working with someone initially thinking I had a thyroid issue, as my mother did growing up. So I wanted to be sure and explore that route. And there was a lot of interesting trial and error with thyroid medication and that not being what supported me. Lots of different tests. It was interesting to also explore pieces around, okay, like let's try maybe an antidepressant. I cycled through a few different ones and ended up with an SNRI and started, fluctuating with my dosing. It went from feeling like it wasn't enough and still feeling a lot of those same symptoms to maybe not having symptoms anymore, but going into, losing my appetite, feeling like I was extremely highly energized, talking really, really fast and go, go, go. So that was really interesting for me and for my parents to observe as well. So navigated that for a couple years. and until I just found a dose that was right for me. And yeah, it did feel supportive at the time, and it helped me get out of bed. It helped me do the things I needed to do. And though I'm off them now and have been for a while, I'm definitely still an advocate for medication when it is needed for people, and until they can, yeah, hopefully find the resources, the tools. So yeah, with that, I was on them, I think, for about 5 years, I believe. So it's pretty wild. So I'm 28 now, so I've been off of them for a couple years now.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing a little bit of that. I think at some level we can all relate to that. I know I had a lot of anxiety growing
Mm,
up, and um, yeah, I think many listeners at any age here, can relate to these senses of anxiety or depression, or just that feeling of disconnect from the world, right?
mhm.
And not knowing perhaps there are other tools, which is why I'm so excited, to continue this conversation, to have you here on the show. Because I think,
Absolutely.
what I
Yeah.
see is so many people, especially in the traditional medical field, right? Just getting put on these medications without even knowing there's other
Mhm.
options, right? And knowing that this could be part of a plan to maybe not be a lifelong thing, right? And I think there's just so many pieces there. So what did that transition look like for you? I guess, getting off of antidepressants, you started microdosing mushrooms. We're going to get into this conversation. So what actually motivated you to do that? Like, were the antidepressants not working anymore? Did you learn something were you not feeling good? Like, why did you make that choice? And how did you even come across maybe microdosing, right? Like, how did that even come into your realm?
Yeah, absolutely. It all started, I would say, just before COVID, which I feel like was a really prominent time for so many people for change and reflection, as we finally had the time to really sit down with ourselves. And yeah, it was just a couple months before the lockdown started that I had decided to quit drinking alcohol, which was a big one for me. I had just come out of what felt like a really toxic relationship. And yeah, I just sat down with myself and was like, okay, how do I want to feel and how do I not want to feel? And what are the things in the way of that? So as I moved away from alcohol, it created more spaciousness and deeper connection, yeah, with myself, my body. And I was starting to take a look at, okay, what are the other things that I could potentially move away from to feel, yeah, maybe a little bit more like myself? Where am I plateauing and just staying comfortable? And I recognized I was in a time in my life where I was really investing a lot of time in self-reflection, and I had the time, I had the capacity to kind of dive in, and I thought, what better time than now to explore coming off of antidepressants. I had yeah, come to a place where, I was feeling good, I was developing more tools, and I was curious. I was like, okay, what's on the other side of this? What's on the other side of not needing to take anything? What would that be like? And with that curiosity, initially, it was me just diving in and researching. It was like, okay, have other people done this before? I remember sitting in my doctor's office and asking him, maybe for the first time, like, oh, like, what do you think about this? And I remember him saying, like, oh, with this medication, it's something you'll probably have to take for the rest of your life. And that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, what? Like, you didn't tell me that when I
Wow.
started taking this medication. And that made me like really sad. And I was like, this has got to be, we're like, okay, the doctor says one thing, we're going to do a little bit of research. And so, yeah, I dove in, and it was honestly hard to find a lot of research. There's like, where do I start? I'm like on Google at this point. And I'm not really hearing a lot of other people talk about it. There's a few articles. So basically the information I got was, go slow, taper off, talk with your doctor, of course, and explore some other, yeah, natural remedies that are going to aid in some of these initial symptoms that you were struggling with. So it's like, what are other ways to manage the reasons why I was taking antidepressants in the first place? So yeah, it was really beautiful to start researching things about adaptogens, other herbs that were going to support me in that. And then from there, yeah, I spoke to my doctor, who was essentially just a walk-in clinic doctor that I see maybe more regularly than not. And luckily she felt relatively supportive of that. And just was like, okay, you're just going to need to go really slow. But I was definitely the one advocating for myself. I was like, okay, I need to go really, really slow. It's the lightest dose I can come off. And like, I was just going to stay with that for as long as I could. And yeah, that's kind of where I began. And with that, microdosing mushrooms kind of came up for me, and I was curious to know how that could support my mental health. As before even considering that, I was very much, no substance. I had explored cannabis as a teenager, and started moving away from that as it was also perpetuating anxiety. So yeah, with, a little bit of apprehension, I was introduced to it by someone I was seeing at the time, and he luckily had his own microdosing business that he had just started. So it was like, oh, this is so perfect. You know all about this. So yeah, he kind of introduced me to the microdosing world, and I started at a very, very light dose as I slowly tapered off my medication.
Yeah. So were you doing
Yeah.
them at the same time? So you were still a little bit on antidepressants and then started introducing the microdosing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
Fascinating.
great question. So, yeah, with my doctor, I mean, I was definitely not chatting with my doctor about incorporating
Right.
magic mushrooms, but I found that as I yeah, tapered off my medication. I got to a place where I was taking it, I think, every second day. So with that, I was implementing on my off days a light microdose. So it was probably around at least four times a week, through, I would say, a 6 month period, with taking a few breaks there. I was kind of just developing my own protocol as long as I wasn't taking it every day. Um, and being mindful of, yeah, what was coming up in the process of coming off the antidepressants. So yeah, with that, I kept a little journal, which was really, really important for me to kind of gauge, okay, where was I in my medication dosing? um, I would taper off the lightest amount and then stick with that until I felt consistent and level and balanced. And then I would explore, okay, what would be the next step there? And with that also, yeah, microdosing mushrooms a few times a week.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay. Um, so I want to really acknowledge that a lot of my listeners are completely brand new to this topic of microdosing.
Mm.
So just to clarify for everybody listening, what we're talking about with microdosing is microdosing psilocybin, so magic mushrooms. And it is absolutely becoming more well studied, and there's just so many cool pieces. I've microdosed as well. I'm not right now because I'm pregnant. um, there's so much here. So I thought before we dive any deeper, maybe you could even tell the listeners what is microdosing.
So microdosing is essentially taking a subperceptual dose of a substance, in this case, psilocybin, a few times a week, on a protocol for over 6 to 8 weeks at a time. And with this, it is, yeah, such a light amount and subperceptual, meaning that you're not noticing the stimulation necessarily, but you're definitely benefiting from it in a lot of beautiful ways. So, for example, taking such a light dose for myself was really allowing me to feel more clear, a little bit more energized. So I was able to get up and go about my day. I also felt more connected to my body and a lot more grounded. So less in the head, more in the body. I also felt a lot more clear cognitively as well. So I was more aware of my thoughts, and therefore, with that, there was more spaciousness between my thoughts. There was a level of awareness that I was noticing. So instead of reacting to a lot of my world or some of these experiences I was having with maybe anxiety, it was, okay, how can I respond in this situation? How can I check in? What does my body need? Instead of going to, yeah, like shut down, or yeah, feeling that overwhelm, that dysregulation. It was like, okay, wait a second, I have a moment here to think and honor, okay, what are the tools that I could use to perhaps shift or just be with what is arising?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful. Thank you for sharing those pieces. I think that's fascinating. A lot of people are wondering, right? Like, well, how can this actually help? What does this look like? So really beautiful to
Mhm.
hear. And I just wanted to say ditto to everything. When I microdosed, I noticed different things in my body too. And playing around with different dosing and different schedules. I
Mhm.
mean, there's lots
Mhm.
of kind of finessing, but it's Yeah, it can be a really cool tool. And I know I just want to plant this here. And I'm curious actually if you know any more specifics around like the studies that are being done. But I do loved. We both saw Paul Stamets speak last year at the Plant Spirit Medicine Conference, and he was sharing some incredible studies about this microdosing maybe even being more effective than antidepressants, and something that you don't actually become lifelong hooked on. And just so many cool things, even around addiction. And we talk a lot about that on the podcast, and the potential here for just balancing out some of what's going on in the brain and getting us, like you said, I love that you felt more in your body, you had more spaciousness between your thoughts. Like, can we imagine if everyone listening to this started having that, right? And instead of binging on sugar or reaching for that glass of wine, we have that like grounded feeling of, no, like I'm going to choose something else, or I have other options, or I want to do something different today. So yeah, really beautiful. I'm curious though, like in that journey, continuing to talk about this journey as you started like tapering off antidepressants, using microdosing, were there any challenges that arose? Like what were some of the pieces that you came up against as you sort of made that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like just to really, yeah, emphasize the fact that coming off of medication is not an easy journey. And I think for myself, I had the privilege of, okay, I have time, I have space, and I have the tools, I have some support here to dive in. And I would say, yeah, recognizing that that's an important piece. And with that, there were still a lot of challenges that did come up, even with the time to honor my needs. And yeah, I would say what I noticed reflecting back is a lot of the withdrawal symptoms that can happen um, can be, I would say, mitigated and managed with coming off very slowly, with managing the dosing. And for me, I was kind of a little bit trial and error there. I was trying to go as slow as possible, but I recognized this part in myself along my journey was like, I want to be off this, like, I want to do it. And if I'm going to do it, like, it's going to be the hard way. And like, I got to push through for it to be worth it. And I would just say it doesn't need to be hard. You can, take your time and go as slow as you need to. And I think that's probably what I would tell myself as I did struggle with some of the withdrawals for myself looked like, needing to sleep like sometimes 14, 15 hours straight, waking up still feeling groggy and tired. Kind of being in this interesting in between of like dreaming and waking, where like waking life kind of still felt like I was dreaming. I would say definitely kind of this overall like heaviness on certain days with the withdrawal coming online, emotions coming up, anxiety, like some of these initial symptoms that I was struggling with did, arise again. And I would say there's a big difference between what seems like they're all coming back and actually just you withdrawing from the medication that you've been on. So some of this it just coming to the surface and having to be detoxified, right? So I wouldn't say that all of those symptoms, necessarily came back. It was definitely more of my experience with coming and moving away from the medication. And yeah, I would say yeah, a lot of emotions as I was learning how to feel them and navigate them without shutting down. It was definitely probably the hardest part, and perhaps not having community or people to talk to about what I was going through. That was quite difficult in ways not everyone can relate to, this journey that you're on. And I think for myself, I didn't actually realize to the extent of what I was taking on in that. So yeah, I would say definitely the withdrawal pieces were tough. In ways, but that was probably around the 3 to 5 month mark, somewhere in the middle where I was tapering off, kind of just yeah, somewhere halfway, and then I think again right at the very end, just the last little bit there for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll make so much sense. And um, I love that you mentioned the emotional piece, because that's something that I know we talk a lot about on this podcast
Hmm.
and my listeners would be really curious about. I'm curious, like, you said you had to sort of learn how to be with your emotions again. Was that not something that you learned growing up? Is that something like what was your relationship with your emotions like in your younger years growing up? And then like how did you actually support yourself in learning to be with those? Because I think that's I'm asking this because I know so many, even in my personal life, I know people on antidepressants who have tried going off them before, and the emotions start coming up and they think there's something wrong with that. So they go back on the antidepressants. So I'm curious if you can just speak to that piece.
Absolutely. And I think I definitely came across that in coming off of them. It was like with that lack of maybe support fully in all areas of my life, it was like perpetuating that theme of, when growing up, okay, big emotions are maybe not welcome, or it's not a good time, or the too muchness of it all. So yeah, definitely having a lot of that resurface and like, oh no, like, is it safe to feel this? Is it okay? And I think with that, it was learning to hold myself in that and knowing like it's okay to fall apart. Like this is all part of it. So that was a big piece of learning as I continue to learn through, some of the trainings that we've done and just living life and bring that level of awareness in. And yeah, that was a big one. Learning to feel, knowing that it's okay, and asking for help in that meantime to remind yourself that it's okay to feel, and it's part of it, right? It has to come up to the surface to be healed. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of that, but with that, it was like, okay, how can I sit with it? What are some of the tools that I can use to, yes, perhaps explore state shifting and okay, how can I come back to a grounded state, and balancing like maybe today I just need to feel and like be in this all day, and like that's part of the process. I know for myself, I have the tendency to want a state shift, or like, oh no, like I'm feeling like this, like how do I change that? How do I shift it? What do I do about it? And yeah, that's beautiful, and I love that about myself. And there's a time and place to honor the emotion, feel it, and explore tools to help ground to come back to center. So it's definitely a little bit of a dance there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can really relate to that in my own journey. I know we've had conversations about that before too.
Yeah.
I know this is resonating with my audience because all of my clients, all the women I know really struggle with this, right? And this dance of, for most listeners on the show here, right, reaching to sugar, right? When like, oh, I'm starting to feel uncomfortable, there's big emotions starting to come up, right? I want a state shift. And the quickest way that we've been taught, at least here on the podcast, to do that is to reach for sugar, right? Or have alcohol to feel better because there's something wrong with feeling bad. So I really appreciate you speaking to that, because this is such a belief and paradigm shift of it's not bad to feel bad. It's actually an important part of being a human, right? To actually let that shit out and feel what needs to be felt so we can move through it and move forward. So, that in itself, little nugget for everybody there, right? Just making that relationship with knowing that it's okay to have down days. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be angry, all the things, right? That we've been taught it wasn't okay.
Space.
Yeah. And to be in community. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I know I'm so grateful to have you as part of mine, in this like sacred spaces and communities where we can gather and just be a mess together, right? And like be in those emotions together and get to repattern that, seeing it in other people that, oh, it's okay for her to do that. Like, then I can do that too. Right. And, there's so many gifts in community, and the right type of community where we can start to repattern that for each other.
Absolutely. I just want to echo that. And yes, all the tools were amazing. And the microdosing was, really, really helpful for me with the withdrawal, and definitely was something that I could, commune with and work with, and then step away from, and have all the takeaways still there with me, which was so beautiful. And one of those really transformative pieces was being in community, healing in community, and feeling related to, as the journey inwards can feel quite lonely, and we can kind of get caught up in thinking, we're the only ones going through what we're going through. And then when we, lift our heads up and look around, there's so many other people moving through what we're going through in their own way. And I just want to encourage like more people to, talk about it and relate to each other. And it's like, we don't know the seeds that we're planting for each other. So community was a saving grace for me on my journey as well.
Yeah, totally. Community is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious, like what do you come up against, or what have you seen as some of the common misconceptions about microdosing? Because I know there's a lot out there, even if listeners have maybe heard of it, or even if this is brand new, right? I mean, there's just so many myths and misconceptions out there about microdosing, especially as a tool for mental health and healing and addiction and all this stuff. So what are some of those things that you've seen or heard?
Absolutely. There's so many, and I come across a lot of them with my work as there are so many different types of people interested in exploring microdosing as another modality. So I would say the most popular is, am I going to be high? Am I going to like hallucinate? And once again, like emphasizing we're taking a subperceptual dose of mushrooms. So such a small amount where it's really, really playing around just in the background, opening up new neural pathways, allowing us to think and behave in different ways, creating like just energy, clarity. And with that, it does work on serotonin receptors. So there is this beautiful mood enhancing effect. But I would say another misconception is that, it's another magic quick fix happy pill that I can just take and like, okay, amazing. It works for other people. I'm going to feel great and it's going to fix all my issues. And once again, yeah, this is a tool to be worked with. And like, what are we offering this beautiful medicine essentially in return, right? So I would just say, yeah, approaching microdosing in a way that's transactional is just probably the wrong way to go about it. It's really like, how can I be with this medicine? What am I offering it? My time, my presence, intention, and not just thinking like, oh, I'm gonna feel great when I take this, as that oftentimes does happen as we explore a protocol for a couple of weeks, and sometimes after a couple of weeks, anxiety can arise, and that can be a common thing with microdosing. You can feel a little bit hypersensitive. Okay, like, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed, or I'm noticing that in my body. And then it's recognizing, okay, like, what is my set and setting like, even with a light microdose? What am I thinking about? Am I in my head? What's going on with my body? Am I not honoring my needs in this moment? And just, allowing yourself to drop into, okay, what is the medicine showing me? Like, it's showing me to change my behaviors. And what is that behavior that needs to change right now? And that's perhaps, slowing down, being with the body, checking in with yourself, and honoring what you might need. And I would say that's a common one, and something that I come across quite often, especially if I'm microdosing and I'm like, okay, we're gonna go, 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 we're gonna clean, we're gonna organize, and feeling creative, and then all of a sudden, okay, we need to slow down. I need to like take a moment to just sit and check in with myself. I would say, yeah, another misconception would be, is it something, I need to take every single day? And once again, yeah, microdosing, you definitely don't need to. You don't also want to, because you build up a tolerance quite easily with mushrooms. So there's quite a few protocols out there. So I like to say, you're figuring out what's best for you. Everyone is unique. Everyone is different. Dosing is going to look different as well. So I say start low, go slow, and taking it on your days off at first, and spacing that out, and just seeing how that lands for you, and changing it up if you need to, increasing your dose very, very slightly if you're feeling like, okay, I'm not noticing anything at all, but I would like to start noticing a little bit of something, and just going up by maybe 50 milligrams, and just seeing how that lands for you as well. And yeah, once again, it's not something you have to take forever, right? You can explore it for a couple weeks, or maybe more of a protocol for 6 to 8 weeks, and see how that feels for you. Take a little break. I would also say, you don't want to take your microdose and go about your normal day filling it with a bunch of things, right? So yeah, I would say check in, see how you feel with your dosing first before you're doing your work. Maybe you work from home, maybe you're in the office. Some people use it for, focused work, and that's really beneficial for them. But I would say, yeah, once again, check in with yourself, see how you feel first before you're stacking your day with a bunch of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful. I'm so grateful. Yeah, you mentioned all of those things, because I'm thinking I used to think all of those things too back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And learning more about it is really, really
Mm-hmm.
helpful. And I want to pull out I think it was the first one you said, because I know that so many of my listeners can get caught in this trap of thinking this is the other quick fix, right? Oh, this is just something else that's better than me, that I won't get hooked on for life, that will solve all of my problems, right? And what Gabrielle is sharing, and this podcast is all about, and I talk about and preach all the time, is that, as you said, this is just a tool to help you then, what I would say, do the inner work, right? To actually go in and uncover the deeper layers of like what's really going on, and having this be something that supports you, because that can be a really fine line, right? Of being like, oh, I'm feeling crappy today, I'm going to microdose, instead of being like, well, why do I feel crappy? Or can I just allow myself to feel crappy? Or yeah, just there's so many layers to that. I wanted to like pull that one out because I think that's a really fine line that I know a lot of my listeners dance with, is like reaching for the next thing, right? We've been trained to do that since childhood, and really just coming at it from that place of, no, I'm going to use this to continue doing my inner healing, and have this be just a tool.
Yeah, just another tool, exactly.
Yeah.
And it works really well with all the other tools.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Speaking of other tools, but related tools, um, I know you and I both very fascinated by the psychedelic world beyond just microdosing. I'm curious if you're open to sharing a little bit more about, yeah, your experience with psychedelics beyond microdosing, and how maybe some of those experiences have contributed to your overall healing and the depth of, what you're moving through and creating in your own life.
Absolutely. Yeah, psychedelics have been, yeah, such a beautiful transformative journey for me as it continues to be. And I think for quite some time, I was very much just exploring the microdosing aspect. And there came a point in my life where I felt like I was hitting a bit of a plateau where it was like, okay, I'm doing the work, I'm using the tools, and I'm still recognizing myself in some of these patterns. And yeah, it was getting a little bit frustrating. And it was like, okay, like I want to shake something up. What's going on here? What else can I do? And yeah, it took some time to just kind of sit with myself and recognize, like, okay, like what's on the other side of taking, a larger dose of mushrooms, exploring psychedelics for healing in a way that would allow me to really surrender a level of control. And just, yeah, fall into a bit more trust. And yeah, I got to a point in my life where I was like, well, you know what, like I am so so fearful taking a large dose of psychedelics, but I'm at this point where like I feel so awful, like, like it can't be that bad, it can't be that bad than how I'm feeling right now, like let's go for it. So yeah, I brought all the nervousness with me, and yeah, welcomed myself, and I decided to sit with a guide for my first deep journey, which I'm so glad I did, as there's so many beautiful benefits of feeling supported and having someone hold that energy for you. And after that, it was really interesting. My whole life did like a 360. It was like, yeah, welcome to the psychedelic world in like a whole new way. And it really allowed me to shift perspectives and see myself in a new light, essentially see myself through the eyes of people that I love, and recognize the ways I was loving myself conditionally, and yeah, really limiting myself to what I really truly wanted and who I wanted to be. And that was like taking myself out of this little box and recognizing, oh wow, there's so much more to Gabrielle to explore. Like what does she want to be like? What does she want to explore? So yeah, that was really beautiful. And after that, just dove into my own explorations of, once I felt safe with that one-on-one journey experience, I started increasing my microdoses, and just sitting with the sensations that were heightened, and that turned into, yeah, quite a few kind of solo journeys with myself. And yeah, there was always some really interesting and beautiful content that arose, a lot of processing that needed to happen, a lot of feeling. And it gave me the opportunity to really hold myself in that and walk myself through the other side, and allow me to shift, yeah, these structured ways of thinking. And I like to give this beautiful metaphor. My partner always likes to bring this in when we hold space for people together, and is this concept of like a snow globe. And essentially there's these tracks that we've gone down over and over again, there's these grooves that we've made, and psychedelics essentially shake that snow globe up, and the snow kind of settles again, and we can maybe still see those same tracks that we've been on, but essentially we have the opportunity to create new ones in a way that's a lot more accessible. So yeah, I would say there is spaciousness to lean into new ways of thinking, of behaving, which allowed new opportunity, and yeah, new ways of my full authentic self to come online. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So beautiful. I resonate with all of that in my own journeys with psychedelics as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, just so much potency and power in all the different types of psychedelics having their own medicine with them. Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing all those pieces. I mean, this is just like, as we said at the beginning of this podcast, right? Life is such a wild ride. All the things for us to like uncover and heal, and tools to try on. And yeah, just so grateful for you sharing little pieces of that. So as we sort of transition closer to the wrap up of this podcast, I did want to make sure we had time to touch on sugar. So I want to talk about sugar.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit, because I know you've also been on a journey with sugar, which is really exciting. And I remember seeing that when we were at our trainings together, and you talked to me a little bit about that, but would love to bring that forward here on the show, talking, obviously shifting gears from the antidepressants, the microdosing, the psychedelics, but everything being intertwined in our healing journey. What inspired you to, I know you've been off processed sugar, I think you said now, for many months. Like, what inspired you to do that? And what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, wow, it's been such a journey. Yeah, it's been about 10 months now. And yeah, like you said, the healing is really like mind, body, soul, right? Once you start tuning into some of these pieces, you recognize like, oh wow, like what's the body got going on? How can I really tune in and listen to what it's trying to communicate with me? And my body was communicating with me, and I knew it for quite some time. I would sit in my meditations and just get these little pieces of insight, like maybe you should check in and see how your gut health is doing, or I feel like you could have more energy or feel a little bit more clear. And recognizing, yeah, even anxiousness can be a result of gut health and things like that. So yeah, as I sat with it for a while, it's interesting reflecting back, because a lot of these things I tuned into actually ended up being true. I felt into the idea that I might have an overgrowth of candida again, which I had dealt with about 10 years ago for the first time, and worked with a naturopath. So yeah, I found a naturopath that I resonated with. She definitely has more of a psychosomatic approach, which I really appreciated, because it's so much more than like try this, buy this test. It's like, let's really connect with what is your lifestyle like, what is your emotional regulation like. There's so much weaving that happens there. So yeah, I went in and I chatted with her about some of these reoccurring symptoms that I was getting. I had experienced UTIs for the first time, and I was like, what is this awful experience? I was feeling very disconnected from my body as it was struggling, and I was really trying to do my best to support it, eat really healthy, all these things, and it just was still not feeling great. So it was very humbling, and that kind of flowed into, okay, how can I be more devotional to my body? And this sense of, I would say, discipline equated to a level of self-love that I just dove right into. And with the help of my naturopath, I did a lot of testing. I ended up having an overgrowth of candida, like I felt, and went through some cleansing there. And with that, was moving away from sugar. So with my experience in that, I was like, okay, I've done this whole no sugar thing before. And, I'm someone who doesn't, I try to stay away from, the candy and the process, like buying the chips and all the things. But it was like, I love my dark chocolate, I love my honey, and I love the flexibility of like, if I'm eating out or with friends, that I can just like let go of like, oh no, I can't. And so that needed to shift a little bit, right? So I think that was really hard at first. And yeah, I recognize it's always the first couple of weeks that are hard, as the actual withdrawal is like, whoa, sugar is a drug. What's happening to me? So that was really interesting. I remember this moment with my partner. He had some cinnamon buns on the counter, and I was probably a week in, and I like looked at them and just like had a full meltdown about it. And I was like, wow, this is real.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really interesting. And then after about 2 weeks, it was like all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like I can walk down the candy aisle and look at someone eating, ice cream, and be like, I'm okay. Like I'm good. So that was huge for me to remember that. And I all of a sudden felt this sense of freedom, and it was like, oh, like I'm moving away from that addiction piece, and I'm kind of taking back my power, and I'm not being controlled by my food and my cravings as much, because I recognize like, oh, I just feel like this, I feel like this. It's like, do I actually, like, what is actually controlling this? So that was really interesting to be in again and reflect, and also really hard. Like, my partner, friends, if you're someone who just lives in this world, people are constantly offering, treats and things, and it can be quite difficult to, actually like, no, I'm okay. And it's like am I explaining why? Am I just like saying no, thank you? And just having to sit with all the things that come up in saying no and in kind of wanting the treat, but then knowing that, okay, like what is something else I can do to treat myself? It's like recognizing that that is actually the treat is saying no. It's like I'm honoring myself by saying no. Sometimes the treat isn't always honoring myself. Maybe that's actually backwards and it's a little bit disguised, right? So, yeah, it's been about 10 months now, and I'm in and out of detoxing and cleansing the body still as I've dove into some parasite cleansing and healing the rest of the gut lining. So, yeah, recognizing that whole journey, it's just like I've wanted to come to this destination of I'm healed, I feel great, and everything's amazing, you know? And I was like maybe hoping it'd be like a 3-month thing. And yeah, 10 months later, you know, I'm going in and out and really honoring the process of it because it's quite a lifestyle change and there's pieces that come up emotionally in a huge way that also need to be felt with letting go of certain foods or coping mechanisms. So that was something that I definitely underestimated, especially with detoxing the body, right? So yeah, journey there, and then it's just made me realize like, oh wow, like I don't think I want to go back to processed sugar. Like I just if I'm not craving it, and before it was maybe causing some addiction and just like pieces that didn't feel good for me, how can I slow down and make more conscious decisions? And that does come with like reading a lot of labels and asking questions and maybe saying no. And to be honest, being more prepared, like thinking ahead for myself. So yeah, it is quite a few little shifts, but after a little while, it's like, okay, no, like I can get into this. And there's a really beautiful portal of yeah, devotion that just opens up when you honor yourself in these ways, regardless of what other people are doing. It's like you know your why, and that is sacred.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So beautiful. I'm so proud of you, Gabrielle. That's incredible.
thank you.
It's not easy to do. I know
It's
myself,
not
like, and
easy.
everyone who's ever tried it, right? It's really challenging.
Yeah.
So cheering you on in a big way and like really love hearing this. You know, I can relate to that deeply as well as we do these, you know, inner healing and really reconnect to our true selves, right? What hopefully unfolds from that is a new sense of love for ourselves, a new sense of
Mm,
love for our bodies and respect for our bodies. And I really feel like that's one of the secrets, one of the gateways into like not needing sugar anymore and or alcohol or whatever, name it, right? That we know is toxic for our body. You know, we come from this place of feeling really like empowered and grounded and like I really love my body. I don't want to put that toxin in it, right? It just becomes a way of being and you know less of a fight you know over time. So love that you're feeling that and you're just finding this new flow for yourself and you know I'm here cheering you on in your corner.
thank you so much. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
just taking that moment also to recognize, yeah, like, whoa, this has been a journey. It's not easy, and it's so great to be able to relate to other women in it, and that other people are in general are just yeah, they're questioning, they're asking questions. They're like, okay, wait a second, like why are we normalizing this? How can we support each other in, you know, our alternative ways of eating or wanting to just honor ourselves and like you said, truly making these changes and recognizing you have a choice in every moment is like self-love in so many ways and knowing that like we're worthy of
Yes.
making those hard decisions.
Yes. And worthy of feeling good. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, right? I'm
Yeah,
assuming you feel
truly.
better not eating
Yeah.
crap and healing
Yeah.
your gut and not having parasites in you and candida. You
Yeah.
know, feeling clearer, feeling like we can think, we feel like
Yeah.
we're ourselves, we're grounded, we're happier, you know, and also able to honor the heavy emotions too. I mean, all of it. But
Yeah, I love
yeah, I
that.
think
And it's not normalizing like feeling okay. It's like
yeah,
you don't know how good you can feel until you feel that good and you're like,
yeah,
"Whoa, what was I doing before? Like, I don't know if I was doing that well."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and surrounding ourselves with people who also feel good. I think, like you said, I think that is a big thing in our culture and society. It's normal to feel crappy. It's normal to feel
Yeah.
tired all the time. It's normal to feel bloated
Mm,
all the time and to have all the sugar cravings. So we're like hanging out with people who are complaining about just feeling like crap all the time. So
mm-hmm.
it's weird if we don't feel like crap. We feel like then it comes against like our belonging needs, right? Well, I don't
Right.
belong if I feel good and everyone I'm hanging out with doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother rabbit
Yeah.
hole, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like so much easier, this default of like let's relate to each other in the suffering, or
totally.
the just like, oh, it's like it's so hard, or yeah, it doesn't have to be hard, and we can feel good and we can celebrate
Yeah.
each other, and yeah, bring that lightness to like, yeah, why don't we make better decisions together and talk about that?
Yeah. 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 Let's all
Yeah,
feel better together. Doesn't that sound
yeah,
like fun?
it sounds great.
Yes. Okay, speaking of feeling better together, that's a perfect segue because as we wrap things up, would love if you could share a little bit about the work that you're offering in the world. You know, what are some of the things that you're offering for anybody who's listening that may want to come and connect more with you, and also how can people come and connect with you?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, some of the work I do is like we discussed, the microdosing guiding. So I can definitely be found through my website as well through my Instagram at Gabrielle Bachand. I usually just book people through social media that way. I do one-on-one coaching and help people develop a protocol and plan through microdosing and answer any questions. I will also be moving towards building a microdosing cohort, hopefully over the fall, winter, as I know that's a really beautiful time to dive in. So you can definitely look out for that, as that will be, yeah, providing just that community support as well, knowing that other people are walking with you through that journey. I also guide psychedelic journeys with my partner. So you can find us at legacyjourneys.ca. We also host retreats locally in Vancouver. So yeah, we work with a few different medicines. So please reach out if you have any questions there. I also, just host beautiful ceremonial gatherings with women. I do also one-on-ones. I also work with a beautiful medicine called Hape, which I know Danielle knows and loves as well. But yeah, other than that, I've been just really focusing on my one-on-one breathwork journeys with people, as I know Danielle has as well. So that's been really special. So yeah, all the somatic beautiful tools, a mixture of the breath, the psychedelics, and the somatic. So looking forward to curating more events that kind of weave all of them together. So I'm really excited for that.
Yay. Yes, I can't wait to see what continues to unfold. And the work you're doing is so incredible. I love being a part of it. And one day I hope to jump in and join one of your amazing upcoming retreats and do some work with you and Michael and the team. It's just, so beautiful. So thank you for everything that you're doing, Gabrielle. It's so needed. And everyone listening who might feel called to come to Vancouver, come work with Gabrielle, come hang out with me, come this way.
Yes,
And
we'd love to
either
meet
way, reach
you.
out. Yeah, I'll make sure all the links to connect with you are in the show notes below for anybody
Yeah,
listening. And
beautiful.
was there any final words of wisdom, any final pieces that we didn't get to cover today that you really want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say, oh goodness, yeah, just go slow, be easy on yourself, and you don't have to do it alone. Ask for help. That would be a huge takeaway there. And yeah, when you connect with the body and tune in and just find solitude and quietness, all the answers that you need are there. That's what I would say.
That's beautiful. What a powerful message as we wrap things up. Thank you so much again for being
Thank
here today
you.
and for sharing your story with us. And just so inspiring and so
Mm,
incredible. So I hope everybody listening got a lot out of this. And please reach out to Gabrielle, work with a guide. You know, if there's something you're curious about, she's so open and accessible. So reach out and maybe start your journey in healing in the same way.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Danielle. Thank you so much to everyone listening. And yeah, I look forward to connecting.
Yes, wonderful. All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you're loving what we talked about today, please remember to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with someone you love. It helps me incredibly reach more people and help more women who need this information. And if you're ready to go deeper into discovering your unique root causes and patterns keeping you hooked on sugar year after year, be sure to come and check out the brand new free root cause quiz that will give you actionable items to finally begin healing your relationship with sugar from the inside out. You can find the link to download this quiz and other amazing resources in the show notes below. I also wanted to just take a quick minute to share a disclaimer. The information provided in this podcast is for general purposes only and is not at all intended to be professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And as much as I do my best to bring you up-to-date and accurate information, please remember that I'm also sharing my opinions, stories, and ideas that are ultimately not supported by mainstream science. My personal advice should not be taken as professional advice, and you are always encouraged and advised to consult with your own healthcare practitioner before making any changes to your health and wellness routine. This podcast is intended to inspire and offer you alternative views to healing your relationship with food, mind, and body. It is up to each listener to take responsibility for their own health and wellness decisions. I hold no liability or responsibility for your results or lack thereof. Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Let's go.